Hey, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon. We have been on a bit of a break, and I am super thrilled to kick off the next season with one of my good friends, Jennifer Miskimmons. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, Deb. It's great to be the first one back on the new season. So thanks for the offer.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about a few things today because you wear a couple of hats, and I think they're both really important and worth kind of pulling apart. So, one of your hats is you are the Petroleum Engineering Department head at Colorado School of Mines. And the other hat, which keeps you, I know it keeps you very busy, is that as of October, you will be the president of the Society of Petroleum Engineering. So I'm really excited to dive into both of those roles. So yeah, really excited to have you here. So
Thank you. Thank you.
to start, let's talk about Colorado School of Mines. A lot of people here in Golden, Colorado, not far from where I'm sitting myself, give people a little bit of a summary of the school. It's got such a rich history. I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So Colorado School of Mines is a STEM school. We do have some other degree opportunities. For the most part, we are engineering, mathematics, science based. The school has been around since 1874. We just celebrated our 150th anniversary. A lot of people think the school is a private school, but it's actually public. It's a state of Colorado school. We are beholding to the state on certain things. So, which means one of the things is about half our student body is Colorado students, but the rest come from around the world. Student body is about 7,500 total, with undergrad and grad. About 1,600 of those are graduate students. So yeah, long history. Like the name implies, School of Mines, our first degree was mining engineering, and after that, we've added several others, including petroleum
Yeah.
engineering. So
And the Petroleum Engineering Department just had a big anniversary as well. I think the school's been around for a long time. So let's talk about that.
yeah, so we got to celebrate our 100th anniversary as a petroleum engineering department in 2022. So the first one west of the Mississippi, actually. So which
Huge.
is also kind of interesting because a lot of people think it might have been in Texas, but it was actually here in Golden, Colorado.
Yeah. There we
So
go. No, it's great. It's got
yeah.
great history. And so, as the department head, talk about you've been at the school a long time. Talk about how you've seen the petroleum engineering program really evolve over the time you've been at the school and even beyond that.
Yeah, it's probably no surprise that some of the things that we've embedded now in the program are some of the more, shall we say, interesting hot topics that are out there in the world. But we're a petroleum engineering department. We have been obviously for a long time and will be for a while. But we see a lot more geothermal in energy built in, hydrogen, carbon sequestration. So we're really good at fluid flow and porous media, right? So we've started to add classes in those areas, and if not full classes, at least content. But the other big thing is data analytics, data science, AI, artificial intelligence. We boy, that's the up and coming topic. I mean, we kind of evolved from like a geostats to a data analytics. We're still very much in data analytics, but we are also seeing that whole machine learning and AI open up quite a bit too. So that's been pretty rapid. That's
Yeah.
probably been in the last 10 years or so.
I think both of those things are really interesting, right? Like the alternative things. And I think, your point around fluid flow, I did chemical engineering as an undergrad. And so going into petroleum was such a natural thing, right? Because it's still just fluid flow.
Right.
And I know you've had a lot of conversations with students, so have I, around transferable skill sets, right? And it's not,
Yeah.
I think there's so many students who think that they need to go and work in solar or renewables and stuff to have a career. And yet there is all this really, for students that are more interested in the non-traditional sort of petroleum engineering, traditional oil and gas stuff, there's so many transferable skills and stuff. So how have you seen the students evolve with that conversation? Because I feel like, and we'll get to the data piece, because I feel like a few years ago it was all about
Yeah.
data analytics, and that's sort of still there, like you said. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But how have you really seen the students really approach the petroleum engineering fundamentals and how they're going about, what they're learning and thinking about their careers and some of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so boy, that's a good question, kind of an in-depth one, but there's been a lot of changes. Probably no surprise. A lot of students come thinking that oil and gas is going away. We're not going to need oil and gas energy. Just take a look at any statistics, and that's pretty far from any truth. So a little bit of it's coaching them on the need for that. But they also want to be able to expand into other energy if that's a desire of theirs, or if they are still concerned about the need for oil and gas. So being able to talk with them a little bit about sustainability and how those skills transfer into some of these other energy areas. And so that's one thing. I think another thing that I've probably seen is, students still want to come out. They still want to have a good career. They still want to have a good paycheck.
Yep.
I think that's something most people do after they want to go to college or after they go to college. But another thing is they want to have a little bit more ability to do things right. Ability to be able to use those skills for greater good,
Yeah.
type of things. So that's another thing I think what we've seen is they want to understand a little bit how they fit into the bigger picture of the world, and that ability to kind of supply energy across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it completely makes sense because it's something that even when I go talk to, professionals, people that have been in this industry for up to, 20, 30, 40 years, it's like, I agree. And I've said this a lot. It's not that it's going away. It's just, it's evolving, right? The way
Yeah.
that the oil and gas
Yeah.
industry does business is evolving and it's still going to need smart people. And I think, again, you and I've talked about it has been challenging to attract people into it, even though there is at the core of it, you're an engineer, I'm an engineer, and engineering really is about problem solving. And we've got some really big problems that we're trying to solve around emissions reduction and climate change and geothermal and CCUS and these harder areas as we deal with hot temperatures and different fluids and all this kind of stuff. So figuring out that narrative is really important. So yeah, anyway, so
Yeah.
curious.
No, it's it is because it's I think that's it. It's everybody always thinks petroleum engineering is so narrow, and it's not. And that's the thing is coaching these students on how broad it really can be. And we have a very international student body, and getting them to understand the different intricacies of where they might work and how what's going on in the US versus Europe versus Africa, they can contribute to all of that if they really want to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really cool. I want to go back to the data AI piece a little bit because I know
Yeah.
it was probably, I don't know, around 2021. All we heard from petroleum engineering students was data analytics. They were all doing they weren't necessarily majoring in data analytics, but they were all doing like minors in it and certificates in it and everything like that. And, but how that transit, like that movement from, because then we sort of didn't really hear about it for a little bit. And like you said, now the AI stuff's coming in really quickly. Like, how have you seen that transition as well on the data side and those kind of skills that the students are really looking for?
Yeah, you, it's really interesting about the data analytics because it came fast and it's changed a lot. I think part of the answer, part of the insight to your question maybe is a little bit of it's just so natural anymore
Mm.
that students just I mean, we have a data analytics class, but data analytics is built into everything. And students are coming in with the ability to do programming a lot more so than they have in the
Mm.
past. They're getting, I mean, if they don't know Python, a lot of them are teaching themselves it. So I think that's one of those things that it's become so embedded in what we do that it's just every bit as much of the curriculum as say drilling or reservoir simulation is
Mm.
anymore.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it. I think part of it too is that's what companies expect in their employees.
It's true.
So we hear that a lot from the companies that hire from us is they don't want a data analyst, excuse me, a data analyst
Yeah,
that's trying to do petroleum engineering. They want a petroleum engineer that can do data analytics.
that makes sense.
And so yeah, so it's something that's just kind of it's had to be embedded, I
Mm.
think.
So
Yeah.
it's really around having the skills, but maybe not the specialty, right? Like
Right.
it's still that
Right.
specialty of petroleum engineering at the core of it, which is really
Yep.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Talking about how things are evolving and some of that kind of stuff, I think one of the things that Minds is doing really cool is around what you have in the innovation and entrepreneurship labs. Can you talk a little bit about like how that's been nurtured at the school and what you're seeing in that, what's going on in that space?
Yeah, so mine's is and I think a lot of schools have probably done this, but has really put a focus on E&I or entrepreneurship and innovation, to the point that we have two brand new buildings on campus, and they're intentionally designed. One is there for students. It's called the Labriola Center. It's a makerspace. It's an entire building designed for makerspace, and students, faculty, staff can go up there. There's a machine shop, there's a woodworking shop, there's 3D printers, there's just about anything you can think
So
of that
cool.
you might want to, yeah, welding, anything that you might want to do to try and take an idea. Like you said, engineers are problem solvers, right? Find a problem, figure it out, mess around with the design and everything. And so it's really allowing students from day one, the minute they step on campus, they're allowed to have access to that. They get training, obviously, and safety and everything associated with that, but allowing them really hands on to do what they want to do. Then the flip side of it, on the other caddy corner on campus, is what's called the Beck Innovation Center. That's built for startups.
Mm.
And there's Mines has set up an innovation fund where students, faculty, alumni that have an idea that might have percolated outside the school, through their classes, into possibly a startup. They can actually go there and get help with startup and things anywhere from legal to, how you set up your company, to just a desk to be able, a hot seat kind of desk to be able to sit there and do it. So yeah, there's a strong focus on that, and some, quite honestly, some really cool startups that are coming out of it. So yeah, it's fun to see. A
It's
lot different when I started here.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, yeah, when I went to university and things like that as well, like it's the thing I think, and it goes back to Mines as history, right? Is that you mentioned alumni, right? The Mines alumni is very strong. And so, like, talk about the importance of bringing the alumni in terms of like really supporting the students. There's been a lot of talk about how do you scale, how to start up scale, how do you do this kind of stuff, whether it's funding or, going from that prototype in the lab to, in the field and stuff. But yeah, just talk about the alumni's importance in that support and piece of that.
So it even starts with Mr. Beck, who was an entrepreneur himself, and he had a couple of sons that came through Mines, and they're both very entrepreneurial in their endeavors. So I think that's it. Is we have a lot of alumni that they've gone out, they have started their own companies, they've been very successful in those areas, anywhere from petroleum engineering to any of the degree areas that we have here at Mines. But they also realized, and I think our administration and definitely President Johnson realized, that they could have gotten a lot more of a leg up if they had some access to this during school
Yeah.
itself. And so a lot of the alumni will come back, they'll offer classes, they'll do coaching.
Awesome.
It's kind of one of those where learn from my mistakes, and I'll try and coach you out of making the same ones, and my successes, right? And so, yeah, it's really fun to see that support from the alumni to come back and have that, I don't know, have that desire to kind of
Yeah.
give back, right? Yeah.
It's really cool. And it's really cool to see. And then, so one of the other pieces, the last kind of piece I wanted to touch on from the school perspective is also the idea of policy. I know you guys, I guess the think tank or the policy kind of arm of the Colorado School of Mines is called the Payne Institute, and a group that I've worked with quite a bit as well. But just talk about how the Petroleum Engineering Department kind of works with Payne and some of the work that they're doing. And Morgan DeBazillion's doing a great job over there. But yeah.
Yeah, a great job, and he's really expanded that. I'd have, again, another alumni, Mr. Payne, kind of realized, Mines is very well known for its technical capabilities, but we never had, yeah, the policy branch, and we never really had that. I don't know, that insight or that ability to kind of weigh in on different areas that fall more under a policy kind of umbrella. And so he stood up the Payne Institute probably, I should have looked this up, but maybe about 15 years ago, 12 to 15 years ago. And yeah, it's Morgan, comes with a tremendous background and connections around the world that now know of mines as a place that they can kind of come for um, technical knowledge that weighs in or can help inform policy decisions. And so that again was another, in 150 years of history, was another branch that we had not really delved into. That all of a sudden, I think we realized that yeah, we've got some really interesting technical information that can be talked about in Washington D.C., talked about in the EU, and some of these people that have this knowledge can kind of be promoted, I guess, through the Payne Institute, and so Payne has. It's been nice to have that other kind of I don't know, corner to the triangle, right? To be able to weigh in on that a little bit.
And
So
again, really cool
yeah,
for, for students that are interested in kind of that kind of aspect of
yes,
the industry and stuff like that to again,
yes.
not everyone's an entrepreneur. Some people are more interested in that policy side. So being able to nurture that. But again, having people thinking about policy who have that technical background is also so important, no matter what it is. You and I were both at a methane event that Payne hosted earlier this year.
Yeah.
And I think exactly to what you're saying, it brought together industry, like clean tech, a lot of the EDFs and the World Bank and kind of some of those organizations all in the same room to have a conversation about some of these things. And that's been one of my big things of like where do we find some of that common ground? How do we get these groups together? And that's been really exciting for me, seeing Payne really kind of leading the way, bringing in all of those pieces, which is awesome. So yeah. Um, so we're going to switch gears from the university to the Society of Petroleum Engineering. So for those that aren't familiar, and I know we've talked about SPE a little bit on this podcast before, but just give people a flavor of SPE, given it's a global organization and what your role as president. You're taking on a big responsibility here in October, so which I'm so excited for you. So
You're gonna have
okay, so switching from the conversation about everything going on at the school, let's talk about this other hat that you are about to wear and have been wearing, I guess. You've been president-elect for a little bit, but in October, you are taking over as president of the Society of Petroleum Engineering, which is a huge undertaking, and you're going to be amazing at it, and it's awesome. I might be biased, but that's okay. But just for those not familiar, give people a little bit of context about like what is SPE or the Society of Petroleum Engineering and this role that you are embarking on.
sure. And I'll take your bias because I need all the support I can get. Um, yeah, so Society of Petroleum Engineers, very much like the name implies, it is a society focused on petroleum engineering, but we are far from just petroleum engineering, and it goes a lot to what you and I've been talking about a little bit. Actually, less than half of the people that belong to SPE are actually petroleum engineers, but Society of Petroleum Engineers came out of the AIME, or American Institute for Metallurgical Mining and Petroleum Engineers. And yeah, it's a technology transfer society, our main focus. We are 127,000 members worldwide. About half of that students, about half of that is professional members. It is worldwide. So we have something close to 200 chapters, or I'm sorry, sections around the world that are professional sections in different parts, and 460 student
It's
chapters, I
huge.
think it is. So yeah, it's huge. And I am incredibly honored to be serving as the 2026 president.
Yeah. We're all as members, we're all thrilled to have you. So you emphasize the global piece of that, and I think you deal with students from all over the world already through Minds, but just talk about some of the challenges because I think for people not completely plugged into oil and gas and even sort of the conversations around energy transition and stuff like that, like different parts of the world are at very different places. So just talk about some of the challenges with this global organization that you see and are going to be having conversations with people as you embark on your role.
Yeah, the challenges are many, which, the flip side of that is there's a lot of good opportunities. But you hit on it. A lot of times when I'm talking with students, much maybe to their dismay, I start with a history lesson, but it is a little bit of history, right? In the fact that different parts of the world are at different parts in their own history,
Mm.
and which means they are different places in their needs for energy. And you look at a very mature country like the United States that went through the Industrial Revolution very early on, and then you look at the continent of Africa, which is really coming up in its need for energy, but there's still millions of people that burn wood for energy
Yeah.
and for cooking purposes, right? So when you look at a global system like SPE, we've got to kind of take a look at where are some of these different needs and different, I'd say, desires. You know, emissions, sustainability. It's of differing levels of desire in different parts of the world. But kind of universally, everybody needs energy, and the energy needs are going up,
Yeah.
and the desire for a good standard of living is going up, and those are a lot of the challenges that we're
Yeah.
facing.
And I think, you talked about, and I got the privilege to go with a good friend of ours through SPE to Lagos for a conference a number of years ago. And I was really struck by the demographic differences are quite stark as well for our, like the SPE members around the world. And I was really just blown away and impressed by all the young professionals, not students. There's a lot of phenomenal students in Lagos and Nigeria as well, but the young professionals are so hungry for to make a really big impact. I think we see the same thing in Latin America, where there's quite a young demographic group and things like that. Like, talk about that as well, with like some of the demographic differences with SPE between the different generations, and again, even just conversations for careers and what people are excited about and some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, and you hit on some of the different demographics that I'd say we kind of look at. When you look at student body and student interest levels, Africa and Asia Pacific are the
Mm.
fastest growing areas of membership in SPE,
Wow.
which also kind of tracks a little bit, right? That's where the industry is really, it's not that it hasn't existed there, but tremendous opportunities and tremendous places for it to kind of take off with a lot of the new discoveries and everything that are going on. YPs, which the younger professionals, yeah, you're right. They maybe have a little different desire than perhaps people of my generation, which hurts me to say sometimes, but
That's
that's
right. I still get upset that I'm no longer classified a young professional.
as
So
a young
you and me
professional.
both, we're both in the old category. So it's like,
Exactly. I'm like, when did that happen?
I don't know. It's
I
annoying.
know. I'm like, wait a minute. But yeah, that's just it. There's the excitement that we see in the young professionals, and the desire to want to make a difference, and whether that's in their own country, whether that's across borders. There's a great new, relatively new kind of movement in SPE called Beyond Borders, where YPs are really focused on how can they help, I would say, the world as a whole, or help certain areas as a whole become, again, that standard of living kind of increasing. And so I think there's different, maybe desires or drivers, where I want to work for a company for 30 years and retire from that same company, kind of mentality is much different than perhaps when I started in the industry. So yeah, there's some differences there. There's also some changing mentalities around societies in general, not just things like SPE, but a lot of societies are seeing decline in membership.
And by
And
societies, you don't mean society writ large. You mean professional
sorry,
society. Just
professional
yeah,
societies, yeah,
yeah,
professional
that's okay.
societies. So groups like SPE have got to kind of take a look at that and say, what do we need to change? What do we need to do
Mm.
different as a society to kind of engage some of the YPs and the students that they want to be 30, 40-year members in SPE. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And
Mm.
we'll come back to the Beyond Borders piece a little bit as we close. But like for you, stepping into the president role in October, um, what are you most excited about?
Ah, um, most excited about getting to meet the members
Mm.
and actually hearing what they want to have or what they want SP to be able to do for them, but also what they can do for SPE. I do think it's very much a two-way street. I think that's why we all kind of belong to professional societies, is the benefits that they bring us, but also what we as individuals can bring them. Yeah, no, I'm very excited to meet with a lot of the groups that we've just been talking about, right? I want to hear about the different problems in the different parts of the world and see what I can do to help make sure that SP's addressing those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given it's a global organization, I know you and I've talked a lot about your crazy travel schedule, but other than that, what are you like, what are you not scared for, but like what are you kind of like thinking about in terms of the challenges, I guess is the better
Yeah.
word for that and stuff as you
Yeah.
take on this role?
So the challenges are, quite honestly, we're still dealing with some budget challenges. And when I say still, Um, when we look at the 2015 downturn, followed by the pandemic in the 2020, and now kind of looking at another downturn in 2025, that hits a professional society. It hits a professional society in sponsorships and memberships. And then you combine that with kind of these changing attitudes about professional societies. One of the challenges is, myself and the other officers, which include the current president, Olivia Hoots, and the outgoing president, Terry Palish, and the CEO, Simon Seaton, we're all very focused on what can we do to set SP up for the future and to make sure that we don't continue to do things the same way just because that's the way they've always been done. But what do we need to do to hear from our members and deal with these financial challenges and just make sure that SP is right sized?
Yeah, no, I love that. And so, kind of in closing, I think, and we've sort of alluded to this and some of this around the thing, and you talked about around the conversation we've been having, and you talked about the Beyond the Borders program that was really a ground roots effort from actually the European sections. It
Yes.
started actually when I was on the board, and it was great to see it was the students across different countries within Europe at the time, and now that has expanded, working together around some of the different things, working together with all sorts of different topics and data topics and network and stuff like that. Like as you look out at whether it's your student body at Colorado School of Mines, the members, both the students and the professionals at SPE, like how do we think have some of these conversations around just these different kind of ideas around what the industry should look like and does look like and does or doesn't look like in different parts of the world. Like how do you like what's your kind of outlook around where maybe some of that common ground is and how we kind of do get ready for the next evolution, right, of this industry, like you're sort of talking about for the challenges with SPE.
Yeah, so I've given a lot of thought about this
Yeah,
because
it's a
if there's something
big
that kind of
topic.
keeps me up at night,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, without sounding too Pollyanna about it, I think we all need to realize that we do all kind of live on the same world, and there are country borders, but to the Beyond Borders initiative, those borders, when you look at things like sustainability, when you look at things like emissions, the borders don't exist, right? And so I think there's some tremendous opportunities that if we stop trying to plant flags in the ground and trying to say, well, this is the way it's got to be, that if we can kind of understand what some of the other issues are in other parts of the world, in other regions, and not just be so myopic in our own vision as, well, this is my world, but kind of be able to look at some of the outside there, that maybe we can solve some of those
Yeah.
problems or,
Love that.
at least start to head in the right direction.
Less
Yeah.
finger pointing.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Um,
Yep.
And I think, for me as well, like, and I think this is why it's going to be so great for you as well with the experience going to talk to everybody around the world as right, as well, right? Like I think we get very comfortable with what we know in our own little, spaces and stuff. And so the insight, we'll have to have another conversation in 12 months time as you're like getting some sleep after all of your travel of like, what did you learn and stuff?
Yeah.
It'll be fascinating, right? So, but yeah, very excited for that. So, and yeah, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. As always, it's an absolute pleasure. So any final thoughts before we jump off?
Oh, um, thank thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, like if I catch up on my sleep at some point in time, let's do this again. So yeah,
Awesome.
thanks, Deb.
Bye.